So is Kaleb McGary the most underrated player for the Atlanta Falcons? Well, according to Pro Football Focus, they had their list of most underrated players for all 32 teams. Kaleb McGary was selected by the Atlanta Falcons. Here's what they say about McGary. Quote, McGary was another offensive lineman who took a big step forward in 2022, besting his previous career high 64.3 overall grade from 2020 with an 86.6 overall grade last season. That was fourth best among tackles. With a run blocking 91.6 grade, McGary only trailed only Trent Williams in run blocking grade from the tackle position last season, and Atlanta rewarded him with a new 3-year contract this offseason. Now, look, I love McGary, and I wanted to sign him in this, that, and the other. I'll make the case that in some ways that our second team All-Pro offensive lineman in Chris Lindstrom is still one of the more underrated guys in the league. I don't think even Falcons fans appreciate how good Chris Lindstrom is. Again, we're talking about a player that was second team All-Pro. And while McGary, got a good deal, and I think it was a little bit below market value, and it was only 3 years, right? Lindstrom broke the bank, right? Five for 105 or whatever it was, $20+ million a year, because they knew the value of what Chris Lindstrom was. But yet we just kind of take him for granted. Oh yeah, Chris Lindstrom's going to anchor the right side of our offensive line. Okay. Like that's one of those positions that you just don't have to worry about, right? We still have concerns about what Kaleb McGary could be. Okay, hey, can Kaleb McGary pass block? We know about his run blocking. We just read you the numbers on all of his run blocking and all that good kind of stuff. But can he pass block? Well, that's still kind of been the issue with Kaleb McGary. That's still been one of the things that, we haven't found out enough about, right? So I still think that, and I'm the biggest Lindstrom fan in the world. Like, I love this kid coming out of college, coming out of Boston College. I thought he was going to be a terrific player. I thought he could be one of our better offensive linemen in Falcons franchise history. Maybe the best, guard. And, listen, there's been great guards. I mean, Freilich and guys like that. But I mean, I still think Lindstrom is a guy that you look at and say, maybe we don't give him enough love. Now, the Falcons certainly gave him enough love because they gave him a $100 million contract and made him one of the highest paid offensive linemen in the entire NFL. They knew his value. They knew what his fair market value was in all of this. But we still don't just kind of talk about him in those kinds of terms. And maybe that's what makes him so great, is that we don't have to go out there and talk about him. Usually if we're talking about somebody, it's not because of good things. Again, it's easy to go in and watch an offensive, a tight end or a running back or a wide receiver, and they go out and do their thing. Quarterback does their thing, right? They can put up all the fantasy stats and, again, all the nudniks that play fantasy football and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm kind of crapping on fantasy football, but all these guys that do all that, we can see kind of the tangible net numbers of all that stuff. But we don't have a way to just kind of pinpoint, unless we're watching the film of, Lindstrom just bulldozing guys down. And I certainly think that with McGary and with Lindstrom on the right side of our offensive line, this is our real strong point of our football team. Like, this is when we talk about the real strengths and the real difference-making strengths in our football team, it's McGary and Lindstrom on that right-hand side and running behind those two guys. Like, that was a winning formula for us last year. That has proven to be a really good offensive strategy, is to run right behind those two guys. I got frustrated many times last year when we would do some of these running plays where, again, we're sweeping around to the left side, or, we're trying to just cut up through the middle of the field. And I'm like, man, run up behind those two oak trees on the right side there. Run it behind Thor and, any of the Avengers on the right-hand side. Just take your running back and just go, okay, see those two guys there on the right-hand side? Just run right behind them and come off the line and just let them fire off the line and just bulldoze your players, bulldoze the defensive line. So, yes, I can understand why Kaleb McGary is maybe considered the most underrated player for the Atlanta Falcons. But I'll tell you though, I mean, and his bank account is certainly different. I still think it may be Lindstrom. When all is said and done, I still think Chris Lindstrom is one of the more underrated players in the NFL. And again, second team All Pro and $100 million contract. That may not belie a guy who is underrated, but I think amongst Falcons fans, we still don't appreciate how great this guy is and how great he can be. And he may be one of the, handful of the best offensive linemen that we've ever seen in this franchise's history. All right, when you listen into Hittin Hard for the first time, make sure that you go in to our comment section on whatever platform that you're listening to and leave us a comment that you are an everyday listener. So if you're one of our everydayers listening in 5 days a week, we want to hear from you. Okay. We greatly appreciate the fact that you're an everyday listener. We greatly appreciate the fact that you're following and listening in 5 days a week to the podcast. Obviously, we're a little bit over a year old now and having a blast doing all this, but we do thank you so much for being an everyday listener. And we want you to go into the comment section of whatever platform you're on and let us know that you're an everydayer and you listen in 5 days a week to the show.